Every year, when the NFL draft gets close, the entire football world becomes obsessed with one number. It's not touchdowns. It's not interceptions. It's not even a jersey number. It's a time, 40 yards. A straight line sprint that has mesmerized scouts, GMs, and fans for decades. We see a receiver run a 4.3, and we crown him the next big thing. We see a lineman barely break 5.0, and we write him off as a bust before he's even put on a helmet. The 40-yard dash has been the main event of the NFL Combine, the supposed ultimate test of speed. But what if I told you we've been looking at the wrong number this whole time? What if the metric that really predicts who has the athletic juice to become a legend is one you never probably heard of? There's a secret score that front offices and the smartest analysts are using to find hidden gems and avoid drafting busts. It's a score that saw the rise of some of the most dominant players of the last decade. And it has almost nothing to do with just running in a straight line. So, forget the 40-yard dash hype. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most powerful predictive tool in player evaluation, the relative athletic score. And by the end of this, you'll never watch the NFL Combine the same way again. The cult of the 40. To get why this secret score is such a game changer, you have to understand the problem. And the problem is our collective obsession with the 40-yard dash. It's easily the sexiest event at the Combine. It's simple, it's dramatic, and it spits out a nice clean number that sports shows can argue about for hours. The appeal is obvious. We've all heard the myths, like Deion Sanders running a legendary 4.2 and just kept running right out of the building. Or Bo Jackson, a real-life folk hero, whose rumored 4.12 is still whispered about like a ghost that haunts every Combine. The peak of this madness happened in 2017. The football world held its breath as a receiver from Washington, John Ross, got into his stance. Everyone knew he was fast, but nobody was ready for what came next. He exploded off the line, a total blur, and then the unofficial clock flashed, 4.22. The stadium gasped. He broke the modern officially timed record. It was pure athletic theater. That single run pretty much guaranteed him a spot as a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. The Cincinnati Bengals couldn't say no. They saw that 4.22 and pictured a player who would break games wide open. Here's where the story takes a turn. John Ross's career, thanks to injuries and other issues, never lived up to his legendary 40 time. He was out of the league after just a few seasons. A harsh lesson that running fast on a track isn't the same as being a great football player. His story is the ultimate warning. The 40-yard dash tells you how fast a player is, but it doesn't really tell you anything else. It doesn't tell you how quick they are, how explosive they are from a standstill, or if they have the strength to fight off a defender at the line. For an offensive lineman who might run 40 yards in a game maybe once a season, the full 40-yard time is almost useless. What really matters for them is the first 10 yards of that sprint, the 10-yard split, which shows their explosion off the line. Even the timing itself is all over the place. Those times you hear from a high school coach, almost always hand-timed. Studies show a hand-timed 40 can be over 0.2 of a second faster than a fully electronic one. The NFL Combine uses a mix, a hand start, and an electronic finish, which is still faster and more variable than a fully automated system. So it's a flawed test, with flawed timing that measures a skill that isn't even that important for most positions. And yet, for decades, it's been the number one headline. A single number has been given the power to make or break careers, create millionaires, and trick teams into making huge mistakes. The league, the scouts, the fans, we were all addicted to speed, even when it was lying to us. There had to be a better way, a way to take all the athletic data, the jumps, the agility drills, everything, and put it all into context. And it would take a self-described computer nerd from Michigan to figure it out. The code breaker. What is a relative athletic score? The fix for the 40-yard dash problem didn't come from a billion-dollar NFL analytics department, but from a football fan and data nerd named Kent Lee Platt. Around 2013, Platt was getting annoyed with how people talked about draft prospects, especially how they were being labeled. He saw a player like running back Le'Veon Bell run a 4.60-second 40-yard dash and get called unathletic by analysts. Platt knew that was ridiculous. For a player of Bell's size, a 4.60 was actually a great time. Bell was clearly a fantastic athlete on film, but the obsession with his 40 time was creating a totally false story. That frustration gave him an idea. What if you could build a system that didn't just look at one drill, but compared a player's results to every other player of that size at that position in history. What if you could finally add context to athleticism? And just like that, Relative Athletic Score, or RAS, was born. You can find it on his website, ras.football. Here's the simple genius of it. RAS takes all of a player's key measurements from the combine or their pro day, which includes their height, weight, arm length, and hand size, and mixes them with their performance in all the athletic tests. This includes the 40-yard dash and its 10 and 20-yard splits, the vertical jump, broad jump, shuttle drill, 3-cone drill, and bench press. Platt has built a huge database of these numbers for over 26,000 players, going all the way back to 1987. For each test, a player's result is compared against every other player at their position in that database, which gives them a score from 0 to 10. For example, if a quarterback runs a 40-yard dash that's in the 99th percentile for all QBs since 1987, he'll get a 9.9 for that drill. A 5.0 score means he's perfectly average for his position. The system does this for every piece of data it has. A player's height, weight, vertical jump. Everything gets a 0 to 10 score. Finally, all these individual scores are averaged together to create one single, easy-to-understand number, the player's relative athletic score, or RAS. The result is a simple color-coded card that's incredibly easy to read. Scores from 8.0 to 10.0 are green, meaning elite athleticism for that position. Scores from 5.0 to 7.99 are yellow, for good to average, and scores below 5.0 are red, for poor. This system is a game changer because it does two things the 40-yard dash could never do. First, it rewards being a well-rounded athlete. A player can have a so-so 40-yard dash, but if they put up elite numbers in agility drills like the shuttle and 3-cone and have explosive jumps, their overall RAS can still be elite. It gives you a complete picture of their athletic profile, and not just a single snapshot of their speed. Second, and this is the most important part, it accounts for size. This is the relative and relative athletic score. A 4.5 second 40 for a 180-pound receiver is good, but not special. But a 4.5 second 40 for a 270-pound defensive end is a freakish, mind-blowing display of athleticism. RAS is the tool that lets us actually quantify that difference. It tells us not just how fast the player ran, but how impressive that was given their size and position. It levels the playing field, giving us a true apples-to-apples comparison of athletic talent. It was the tool Kent Lee Platt wished he had during the Le'Veon Bell debate, and it has since become a key part of the modern draft conversation, used by analysts, fans, and almost certainly NFL teams themselves. It's the codebreaker that turns a mess of numbers into a clear story of a player's athletic potential. If you're enjoying this deep dive into NFL analytics, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos where I break down the NFL's key metrics and stats. The proof, legends, and their elite RAS. The real magic of RAS isn't just in the theory, it's in the results. When you start digging into the RAS cards of some of the most dominant players in NFL history, a clear pattern shows up. The score works. It flags the freaks. It finds the players whose rare mix of size, speed, and agility would let them become legends. Let's start with the perfect prospect, the unicorn, the 10.0 out of 10.0. This is so rare that only a few players in the database have ever hit it. And maybe the most famous 10.0 belongs to a player who redefined the wide receiver position, Calvin Johnson. Coming out of Georgia Tech in 2007, everyone knew he was a physical marvel, but his RAS card lays it all out. At a massive 6'5" and 239 pounds, he ran a 4.35 second 40-yard dash. That is just absurd. He also had an incredible 42.5-inch vertical and an 11'7" broad jump. Every single one of his measurables was elite. His size, speed, and explosion were all off the charts. His RAS card is a sea of dark green. He wasn't just a great athlete for a big receiver. He was one of the greatest athletes the sport had ever seen, period. For the next 9 seasons, he played like it, earning the nickname Megatron because he was an unstoppable force. His perfect 10.0 RAS was a sign of the dominance to come. Then there's the modern version of the athletic freak on defense, Myles Garrett. When Garrett came out of Texas A&M, he was the consensus #1 pick, and his combine showed exactly why. At 6'4" and 272 pounds, He ran a 4.64 second 40, had a ridiculous 41-inch vertical, and did 33 reps on the bench press. The result was a nearly perfect RAS of 9.99. This wasn't just a big guy who was strong, or a fast guy who was a little undersized. This was a player with elite speed, elite explosion, and elite size for his position. His RAS card told you he had the athletic potential to be completely unblockable, a guy who could win with speed around the edge, or power right through a tackle. And that's exactly the player he's become for the Cleveland Browns, a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate who wrecks game plans all by himself. But RAS isn't just for spotting the obvious can't-miss guys. Its real value often comes from highlighting the athleticism of players who might get overlooked, especially on the offensive line. Take Lane Johnson of the Philadelphia Eagles. Johnson was a former quarterback who switched to offensive tackle in college. He was known for being athletic, but his RAS of 9.96 put him in a historic category. At over 300 pounds, he ran a 4.72 on the 40 and had a 34-inch vertical. Those are numbers a tight end would be thrilled with. This elite score wasn't just a fun fact, it was a clear sign of his unique ability to dominate in the modern NFL. It's that 9.92 athleticism that lets him get to the second level on screens, mirror elite pass rushers, and execute the famous tush-push play so effectively. Maybe the best recent example is his former teammate, future Hall of Fame center Jason Kelce. Kelce entered the 2011 draft as a seriously undersized prospect. At just 280 pounds, many teams dismissed him as too small to play center in the NFL, but his RAS card tells a different story. While his size grades are, as you would expect, bright red, his agility scores are some of the best ever recorded for a center. His shuttle and three-cone drill times were off the charts elite. The result was a fantastic RAS of 9.50. The scorer looked past his size and saw the bigger picture. This was one of the most agile, quick-footed, and mobile offensive linemen to ever enter the draft. It was that elite agility that allowed him to be the heart of the Eagles' offensive line for over a decade, a master of pulling and getting out in space. He wasn't a superstar in spite of his size. He was a superstar because of the elite athleticism he possessed relative to his size, something his RAS card saw long before anyone else. And look at a more recent hidden gem story. Seattle Seahawks cornerback Tariq Woolen. Coming from a smaller school, UTSA, Woolen wasn't a household name. Then he went to the combine. At a towering 6'4", he ran a blistering 4.26 second 40-yard dash. His mix of historic size and historic speed gave him an elite RAS of 9.7. That score screamed that he had a physical toolset, a ceiling that almost no other cornerback in the draft had. The Seahawks took a chance on him in the 5th round, and he immediately became one of the best ball-hawking corners in the league, leading the NFL in interceptions as a rookie. The film was good, but the RAS was undeniable. It was the cheat code that flagged a mid-round prospect as a potential superstar. From Calvin Johnson's perfection to Tariq Woolen's hidden potential, the evidence is clear. High-end RAS scores are a powerful predictor of high-end NFL success. The exceptions that prove the rule. So, is relative athletic score a perfect infallible crystal ball? Of course not. Football is way too complicated for one number to be the final word. A high RAS guarantees elite athletic potential, but it doesn't guarantee a player actually knows how to play football. And this is where the exceptions are just as telling as the successes. First, let's talk about the workout warriors, the combine freaks with god-tier RAS scores who, for whatever reason, never put it together on the field. The poster child for this is defensive end Vernon Gholston. At the 2008 Combine, Gholston put on a show. At 267 pounds, he ran a 4.67 second 40, put up 37 reps on the bench, and had a 35.5-inch vertical. His RAS was a sky-high 9.65. By the numbers, he was an athletic freak, a can't-miss pass rusher. The New York Jets were so in love with this potential that they took him with the 6th overall pick. The result was one of the biggest busts in draft history. In 3 seasons, Gholston had a grand total of 0 sacks. He was athletically gifted, but he lacked the technique, the moves, and the instincts for the position. He was a great athlete who just wasn't a great football player. A more recent and maybe more understandable example is Moritz Böhringer. The German wide receiver became a viral sensation in 2016. He was a physical specimen who had crushed a lower-level European league and decided to test himself at a pro day. The numbers were staggering. At 6'4" and 227 pounds, he ran a 4.43 second 40, had a 39-inch vertical, and posted elite agility scores. His RAS came back at a jaw-dropping 9.98. The Minnesota Vikings took a shot on him in the 6th round. But Boehringer's story highlights another key factor: experience. The athletic potential was obviously there, but the jump from a German amateur league to the NFL was just too massive. His career never took off. These cases don't disprove RAS, they help us understand it better. A high score tells you what a player could be. It's a measure of their physical ceiling. It's up to coaching, work ethic, and football IQ to help them reach it. On the other side of the coin are the players who defy their athletic testing. The players with ugly, red-splattered RAS cards who went on to become legends. These are the guys who prove that athleticism isn't everything. The classic example is Anquan Boldin. At the 2003 Combine, Boldin ran a notoriously slow 4.71 second 40-yard dash. His overall RAS was a pathetic 3.36. By the numbers, he was a subpar athlete for a wide receiver. The Arizona Cardinals still drafted him in the 2nd round, and he went on to have a 14-year career with over 13,000 receiving yards, known as one of the toughest and most reliable receivers of his time. So how did he do it? He won with other traits. He was a master at using his body, a smart route runner, and had some of the best hands of his era. His football IQ and sheer physicality made up for his lack of elite speed. We're seeing a modern version of this with 2 star wide receivers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Kupp came into the 2017 draft with an average RAS of just 5.00. His card was full of yellow and red scores. He wasn't especially fast or explosive by NFL standards, yet in 2021, he had one of the greatest seasons for a receiver in NFL history, winning the Triple Crown and a Super Bowl MVP. Similarly, his former teammate Puka Nacua entered the 2023 draft with a lackluster RAS of 5.15, and then broke the NFL rookie records for both receptions and receiving yards. The success of players like Boldin, Kupp, and Nacua is critical. It shows there's more than one way to win in the NFL. They don't win with overpowering athleticism. They win with superior craft. They are masters of route running, finding holes in zones, and catching everything thrown their way. Their success doesn't cancel out RAS. It provides the perfect counterpoint. RAS is a tool to measure athleticism. It was never meant to measure skill, toughness, intelligence, or heart. These exceptions prove the rule by showing us its limits. They show us that while elite athleticism is a huge advantage, a lack of it can be overcome by elite skill and football smarts. A new way to watch the draft. So what does this all mean for us as fans? How does knowing about this secret score change how we watch the game, and more importantly, how we analyze the NFL draft? The answer is that relative athletic score gives us the single most important thing in any analysis: context. For years, we were just fed a bunch of random numbers. A 40 time here, a vertical jump there. It was like trying to read a book by looking at scattered letters. RAS is the tool that turns those letters into words, and those words into sentences. It organizes the chaos. It lets us look at the prospect's entire athletic profile and understand what kind of athlete they really are. It doesn't replace watching the film. It makes watching film better. It's a powerful lens to view a player's performance through. When you see a player on tape who is constantly winning, RAS helps you understand why. Is this player dominating because he's a 9.9 freak who is just bigger, stronger, and faster than everyone? Or is he a 4.5 RAS player who is winning with perfect technique and incredible instincts? That difference is huge when you're trying to predict how a player would do at the next level. The athletic freak might have a higher ceiling, but he could also have a lower floor if his technique is raw. The less athletic technician might be a safer bet, but his ceiling might be limited against the truly elite athletes in the NFL. RAS helps us ask better questions. Instead of just, how fast is he? We can now ask, how impressive is his speed for his size? Instead of, did he test well? We can ask, what are his athletic strengths and weaknesses? A player with an elite explosion score, but poor agility might be a monster in a straight line, but a liability in open space. It adds layers of sophistication to our analysis and gives any fan with an internet connection access to the same kind of powerful contextual data that front offices use. And that's exactly what I want you to do. The next time you're debating a draft pick or wondering about a player in your favorite team, don't just look up their stats. Go to RAS.football, the site Kent Lee Platt created, and look up their RAS score. I guarantee it will give you a whole new appreciation for the kind of athlete they are. So I want to hear from you. Go look up the RAS card for your favorite team's latest first-round pick, or even a forgotten player from a few years ago. Does their score surprise you? Does it explain how they play on the field, for better or worse? Let me know what you find in the comments below. The NFL Combine will always be affectionately referred to as the Underwear Olympics. The images of players sprinting down the turf in Indianapolis is too burned into our football culture to ever disappear. But we don't have to be slaves to the 40-yard dash anymore. We have a better tool, a smarter way to process the information. We know that the 40 is just one small piece in a player's overall athletic story. Relative athletic score is the closest thing we have to the whole book. It won't tell you if a player is a future Hall of Famer. It doesn't measure heart or football smarts. But it does give us the clearest, most objective, and most complete picture of a player's raw, physical potential. It's the secret key that unlocks a new level of understanding, turning us from casual fans into informed analysts. It is the secret score that really does predict superstars.